Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shelley Zalis, CEO of the Female Quotient and co-founder of See Her.
Run the world, girls. Run the world, girls. Run the world, girls. Run the world, girls.
Just when I thought I retired from research, and here I am again talking about something so near and dear to my heart, which is gender equality. And I think one of the things we know as researchers in particular is nothing happens by itself. We have to make things happen. And the only way as in research to make things happen is to create accountability for change. We have been creating measurement as an industry for so long. Here we are today adding a new dimension of equality to copy testing. How do we now not only measure persuasion and relevance and likability, but how do we measure equality and make sure that we are creating advertising and programming that best portray girls and women in accurate and realistic ways? So I am thrilled to have this conversation with leaders in this industry. And as you all can see, 2 men and 2 women. It's not hard to create balance. It's not hard to create equality. You just pick the best and make sure you really create diversity of mindset in every conversation that you have. Just saying. So with that, I would love to introduce Bob Liodice, the president and CEO of the ANA, the Association of National Advertisers, Fiona Carter, chief brand officer at AT&T, and Douwe Bergsma, CMO of Georgia Pacific. So we have a very short period of time. Okay, we could give it up for this group. So we have a very short window to have a really important conversation. And this is a group that is a lean-in conversation because each and every one of you can actually activate change and make something happen. So Bob, why did you lean in? Why was this See Her movement so important when we brought it to you?
Yeah. Very simply, gender inequality is unacceptable. I can't believe we accepted it for as long as we did. But the research that showed that more than 40% of women looked at our ads and did not see anyone that they recognized. And that's unacceptable. And that does damage to the integrity of our brands and the products and services when we're using people as role models that aren't necessarily role models. So we had to change that, and we were committed to change that. We just couldn't keep talking about equality and not practicing it ourselves, number one. The second thing, which I absolutely just gravitated to and should excite everybody in this room, is that we've got something that we can actually use to measure. The gender equality measure is something that researchers can use to determine the level of conscious and unconscious bias that exists in your ads. And when you know that, you can make changes necessary to be able to build your businesses and to be able to build your brands. So that is the why we were passionate about this subject area.
You know, we always say when purpose meets passion, we're unstoppable. And your passion for this, Bob, has really led us to an industry, all-time high. And I do want to do a shout out to ABX, our partners. We made a commitment that we were going to create a gender equality measure, and we were calling it GEM. And then there was this aha moment where we said, oh my God, GEM is GEM.
Right.
You can't treasure what you can't measure. Let's create gems. And in the past, this movement started a year ago at the White House. Gail Tifford is my co-founder of the See Her movement with the ANA. We've tested over 17,000 ads in just 4 months. 17,000 ads with the GEM score. And so, I really just applaud you for bringing pretty much every major advertiser on board to start evaluating.
Well, thank you for finding this. I mean, we have never had an organization that we could rally around that could, in very specific ways, go about something that we could make these improvements to our ads. And that's been the beauty of the Alliance for Family Entertainment, is making research, bringing research together with reality and making discrete change that we can actually count and figure out how to make better. So kudos to you.
High five. Together.
Good job.
Better together, always. And that brings me to Fiona. One of the things that we've done a lot of homework on is, this epiphany that it's not that women lack confidence, it's that media lacks confidence in women with how we portray them. And we always talk about if you can't see it, you can't be it. And I say if you can't see her, you can't be her. We don't want to be its. So you're doing so much work at AT&T driving this change. First of all, why are you so personally passionate about this? And how is AT&T working with the See Her initiative, not only to create better advertising, but also to get your agencies, your media companies, and all the content that you're creating moved to this next level?
Sure. Well, it's always been a personal passion point for me. We bonded over that. Gail and I bonded over that. I think we've talked at length about some of the challenges, frankly, that women face in work and life. I've hit a glass ceiling. I had to, re-transform my career and take different moves. So it's always been a personal passion for me. I'm a marketer, I'm a woman, but I'm also a mother, and I want my kids to grow up and live their best lives. I don't want it to be defined by stereotypes that society has decided to put on them, both my daughter and my son. So I'm really proudly activist about this. Proudly activist, I joined a great company, AT&T, and AT&T is an inclusive company. It's a democratic company. It's a company of America. We have 220,000 employees all over America. We have 130 million wireless subscribers. We have 20 million TV subscribers all across America. So it is honestly our duty to reflect our customers appropriately and authentically if we're going to engage and connect and remain relevant in their lives. But beyond that, we know it's good business, but we're also the #1 branded advertiser in the US. We spend a lot of money on programming, and we also spend a lot of money on advertising content. We have 5,000 pieces of advertising out there. So I know that not only are we inspired by culture and society, but in all honesty, we shape it too. So I felt a very real personal and professional responsibility. And when I turned up at AT&T, we have great marketers there, but I was looking at the work, and I think I told you this anecdote. So I was building a campaign for the business brand, and we got a great campaign platform back. We tested it, and then we get to producing it, and I see the casting. And unconsciously, not maliciously, what was interesting was that every position of authority that was played in the advertising was cast with a white male. Every secondary role was a woman, and frankly, every blue-collar role was an African American. And so I sent the casting back, and I had to be very intentional and very brave at that point. Nope, we've got to send the casting back. We completely recast. We put women, people of color, men, we mixed them up. We created equality in those roles. And then later, we met you, and we gem scored that work, and it was some of the highest gem scores we have at AT&T. And then thank you.
You guys are not a shy audience. Let's go. Come on.
That's just one step, but you have to take one step to create change. And then what was really amazing was that the business results afterwards followed through. So we had better branding than we'd ever had before, better consideration, better purchase to intent. So for me, that was the first step that I could take. But I had to be really intentional and vigilant to make that change. I can't be in every meeting. So the GEM score and the See Her movement for me is a way to systematize this change and this progress. I want systemic change, which is why I want to tackle things like casting. I don't want a one-off campaign. I want to tackle the very fundamentals of the process. So we're putting all our advertising past and present through GEM score. We are going to actually start doing, boot camps with our agencies. We newly reviewed our agencies, and we have very specific requests around the casting of the people that service our business, because you can't make the advertising the right way if you don't have the right people and the different genders creating that advertising. So we have real commitments from our agencies to partner with us on this. And we're about to buy a very large company. Fingers crossed the merger will go through. We're going to be creating content. And as the brand officer at AT&T, I feel really responsible for trying to ensure that that content is the right kind of programming that is positively promoting images of all gender. It's just a big mission for me.
I mean, so you're saying it also, diversity starts with your agency sitting around the table. that you need to have? Are you putting that into your RFPs of requiring that?
Yeah, you know,
From-
I think we've always had diversity requirements, but I would say this is taking it to the next level. Bob and I were saying earlier, I feel like it's in the zeitgeist, like it's finally, the culture has said, this is the time. We have to go solve for this. So instead of being, you know, a tiny commitment, it's going to become part of the must-dos to succeed in an RFP, just like, you know, contractual obligations.
And from a media buying perspective, are you looking at not only having your advertising do well with GEM, but are you looking to put your advertising into programming that also best reflects?
That's right, but you know, I'm just one brand of many that Bob represents. We have, I think it's something like $35 billion of media budgets in the See Her coalition. And that's very, very powerful. So we've been talking to the networks this week and last week and ongoing about the need for that kind of programming, because context matters. If we can get our advertising content right and with the right kind of GEM scores, then we want that programming to be right. And most crucially, we want it in the pipeline. I mean, the pipeline for the next, so I'm learning in my new role, you know, there's 2 years, the pipeline is already created. So we've got to start emphasizing the kind of programming we want now so that we can ensure the change continues and becomes systemic.
I mean, I think that's amazing, and that's all about strength, which gets us to Douwe. You just created an amazing campaign, Strength Has No Gender. I don't know, I can't even say I don't know if anyone has seen this. Everyone has seen this because it has gone viral, and you've gotten so much earned media as a result of it. There's no longer just a brawny man, there's also a brawny woman, which is really remarkable. What was the inspiration behind that advertising?
Thank you for the compliments, and thank you for including us. I always think that sitting next to giants like AT&T and Unilever, Georgia Pacific is a small, mid-sized advertiser. We're not even 1% of the 35 billion you just mentioned. But the message there is, this is not something that is taken on by the big companies only. I highly appreciate the Procters and the Cokes and the Pepsis and the AT&Ts of the world leading the pack because it changes the industry. But the majority of companies is smaller like ourselves, and I think there's a role for all of us in that. And so I'm always happy to be included in this effort. On Brawny, 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we decided that, well, we actually determined, we didn't decide, we learned from our female consumers that we would probably be more successful if we had a deeper emotional connection with our consumers beyond the absorbency and strength of the paper towel. Sounds like a no-brainer, but after a few decades of highlighting the absorbency and strength and then the amount of sheets that are on a roll compared to the other paper towel roll, we kind of embraced a more emotional connection. We embraced storytelling. And as a part of that, we learned is that an emotional connection is not easy to establish. We did our homework, we talked to our consumers, our target consumers, our core consumers, and learned that there are things that really makes them tick, and there are barriers and struggles they have. And in order to deal with the adversity and the barriers, we came with a campaign and basically said, stay giant. No matter what life throws at you, stay giant. And that was kind of the overall campaign for Brawny that we started. Then last year, in honor of Women's History Month, we said, well, how do we apply Stay Giant to our female consumers honoring Women's History Month and International Women's Day? And we started with hashtag Strength Has No Gender. It was a good success. It was great for us and learned that there's more potential. This year, we took it up a notch. We partnered with Serena and Vanessa, the Williams sisters. We changed the packaging for the first time in history. We put a headless giant on our pack 2 years ago. And now this month we have a headless giant, a female giant on our pack in all Walmart stores to honor Women's History Month. And it's all building up to this Stay Giant campaign where Strength Has No Gender is basically honoring the female consumers that we have, as well as our female employees, as well as the female employees that are retail customers. And it basically took off. And the amount of earned impressions and earned media we just got by changing our packaging. So when we talk about content, it's not only the advertising content that we look at, it's not only the content that we advertise around that's provided by the publishers, but we also believe design plays a big role. And this year it has proven out for us that design can play a big role.
amazing.
And it's breaking every record we ever saw, Joy specific.
I think
Which is
that's-
probably still small compared to you guys, but for us it's huge.
Yeah, see, we all have some benefits here. And I think it does start at the shelf. I mean, I think that that's a really important, piece to put together. But you were also the first to do our first boot camp. And when we talked to the ANA about creating See Her workshops, I'm like, workshop doesn't seem very action-oriented. Let's do a boot camp and see instant results. So we launched the boot camps. And Douwe, you were the first to raise your hand and say, I'm in. We had no idea what we were doing, but we did it just a couple of weeks ago. And I'd love for you to share what happened. But I will set this up to say, we got the phone call to go in and do a boot camp, 4 hours with all your agencies, picking all your brands. We did all your testing. And we were going to do a dinner to break the ice. It was like 50 people that you invited. And I get this phone call as I'm landing in Atlanta to say, oh, and can you come up with some icebreaker for dinner? And I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to come up with an icebreaker? And I just come from University of Michigan. My kids go there and they all play that beer pong, with the red cups. And I'm like, well, Georgia Pacific has red cups. Let's play a version of beer pong. So we got the red cups, we got the little balls, and we played bias pong. And it was awesome, and I'm really good at getting them in. So I didn't have to share anything, but everyone else missed, and they had to share a story about a stereotype that they experienced, some moment they felt excluded, or something that happened in their life. And just to set the tone, we just did a big global study for Unilever in 8 countries, 9,000 people, on the unstereotyped mindset. Did you know that 60% of women say that stereotypes hold them back personally and professionally? That's just a reality, a fact in life. So in we walk to do a boot camp. Tell us about your experience.
Yeah, first of all, it's kind of interesting how crazy good she is at beer pong. You can call it bias pong all day, but she's like, doesn't matter what distance, double bounce, single bounce, she could them all. She did like backwards. Anyway, she knew which challenge to pick. We all lost horribly. We couldn't even drop it in. But first, second point I wanted to make is that Laura Niebusch, our VP of marketing, was the one that raised her hands. And thirdly, we didn't know that the ANA had no idea what they were doing. We thought, like, you want to do boot camp? Like, sure, we'll sign up.
Sorry, Bob.
But anyway, it worked out tremendously. To put all your, I would say, first of all, I recommend everybody to do a boot camp. Secondly, you have to be a little bit brave because it's like looking in the mirror and nothing holds back. Literally, it's very data-driven. We're looking at the GEM scores across all our ads. And one of the reasons we happily joined this movement, and one of the reasons we raised our hands to do bootcamp, because we felt relatively good about ourselves in this space. I just talked about Brawny. We have similar efforts going on our Dixie brand. AngelSoft is doing relatively well. So we thought it's like, hey, we're going to be good, and then we'll learn about how to be great. Not so fast. We were really good at Brawny, and we did really well on AngelSoft. But most of the other brands, we had still more opportunities than we could imagine. And just imagine, you're sitting in the room, you have your head of research there, Kim Saki, she's in the room, and you have your head of design, and your head of marketing, and you get the CMO there. You got every agency. Our agencies, we don't work with small unknown agencies. We have kind of the who is who in agency world working for us or with us. And most of them send their leadership team, like their CEO and their CCO, et cetera, and they were all there. And in front of each other, we didn't see the results up front. The AV and the Girls Lounge literally shows you the GEM scores that the ABX tested for us, and literally showed us the results. And I'm sitting there like, oh, this is going to be good, you know? It's like, what? What did we score on Sparkle, and why are we scoring this on Quilted Northern? And then basically you look at it and say, wow, there's still, even for those that are committed like ourselves, there's still a lot of unconscious bias there that we didn't think of. Needless to say, you probably won't see the Carrie the Fairy on our Sparkle brand as she is today. Where it will go, we don't know, but the GEM score has really opened our eyes in a very quantifiable way. Not only does it show you where you need to be restless and have some discontent with the situation, it also helps you to identify where to go. And that's on the content side, and I won't go deep, but it also helps you a lot on the media side, where to place your media. Because we still identified some opportunities. that overall where we placed our media relatively well, there was still a lot of opportunity to move our media away from low gem scoring programs to high gem scoring programs. And our agency Zenith and our media department are looking at the ROIs of these programs and if it makes sense, and we're in the middle of that. So there's a lot of opportunity there. The big challenge internally we have after bootcamp, at bootcamp, we also run into a brainstorm where we said, what is the gem score of our brand overall? Not the content of the brand, but what would be the gem score for the brand itself? So we're working with several folks around the table to say, hey, what would the gem score be for Brawny? Like the strength has no gender scoring well, but how's the brand overall? And then the last thing is all our agencies walked out pumped, even though some of them got criticized. And all our leaders walked out pumped. And there's now a high need internally, like what are we doing for the company internally? And Shelley, you and I talked about last Friday, like what else can we do to drive it internally?
Well, I mean, this is a wrap for us, but I do want to make one quick shout out to the research community, and if anyone wants to jump in, this is just so incredibly important. Higher gem scores, higher reputation, higher brand equity, things we all know incredibly well. We are going to be doing a boot camp up in the girls' lounge, a gem boot camp, a very quick one for 30 to 45 minutes. For anyone that wants to start getting more information, then we're happy to come and share it. This is an industry initiative that the ANA decided to open up to each and every research company here. ABX is our amazing partner doing post-testing on a syndicated basis, but we want everyone to include it in copy testing, pre-testing as well. So it is available to everyone, and we are sharing. So upstairs is going to be a little mini boot camp. Make sure you go to whatever other things that you're doing throughout the day. Enjoy your dessert, save some for us. I know that I'm supposed to do that shout out. Is there any quick message that you want to shout out in particular to the research industry from an important perspective?
Join the movement. It works. Embrace it. Make the change. Marketers out there are learning. As you see, they're joining the movement. It's here to stay. So please, when you can, if you can, immediately join the party.
Yeah, I mean, I second that. Embrace it. We want the gem score to be a key metric for us. We're a big advertiser. We'd like every brand, small, large, medium, startup, to do the same. So if you could take the gem score methodology, we'd love it. Thank you.
Yeah, my message would be do not underestimate the level of unconscious bias that's out there. And I believe as a research community, you can have a leadership role in driving that to the forefront in your organizations. I thought I was pretty good at it, and I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And I rely on our researchers in the company, our consumer knowledge folks, to hold up that mirror. And I think you all have a responsibility and an opportunity there through the gem score in this space.
Hashtag see her, hashtag see him, see him, see her. Thank you so much.